Thank you all for joining us today to discuss the upcoming Capitol Hill Day, a day that is an important advocacy event that connects members of Congress and their staff to mentors, advocates, professionals, and young people from across the country to talk about critical issues facing the nation's youth and the legislation and policies they can implement to expand access to quality mentoring opportunities. If anyone has any questions during the session, feel free to enter them into the chat box below. And I'm going to pass the microphone to my executive director, James Miles.
Greetings, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. As Vic said, thanks, Vic. James Miles, he, him pronouns, executive director of Mentor Washington. This is our first Job with James of 2022. More and more will be coming. I'm excited about working with all of you as we did last year. It's National Mentoring Month. Woohoo! And also, we just started the legislative season, or session, I should say, last week. And to that point, we're going to talk about Capitol Hill Day, and that'll be led by Tom. But first, we're going to kick it off with colleague and friend, Jim Justin, who is Mentor Washington's lobbyist, along with CSF, College Success Foundation's lobbyist. And we've been working together for just over a year now. So let's welcome Jim. Put your virtual hands together for Jim. Jim, thanks for joining us today. I have a couple of questions and then we'll turn it over to the participants. Of course, this is recorded. So those that are watching the recording, we missed you, but we understand with the wildly variants going around, things are all up in the wild world. So Jim, turn it over to you. Thanks for joining us. You're a lobbyist, Jim. So first, can you tell us what that is? And then how do you get into it?
Well, first of all, thank you, James. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. We do have some sunshine down here in Olympia today. So maybe that's what they're talking about with those forecasts. And James, I mean, you're accurate. We just started last week, and I heard that, and it kind of shocked me because it seems like we've been running nonstop since the session started.
I know.
It did start January 10. They will conclude by March 10. So this year it's a sprint. It's the second half of the biennium. It's the shorter legislative session with their primary objective to adjust the budget as they deem appropriate. Finish off some pieces that they started last year that didn't get over the finish line. Having said that, there have been an introduction of over 600 new bills that were pre-filed before the legislative session started. There is no way they're going to get to even 20% of those in terms of getting them across the finish line. And I would guess that it'll be a number far less than that. Given that they are still working on some pieces that were introduced from last year. So how did I get into the biz? It started, frankly, when I was pretty young. My dad was the mayor of the city of Vancouver, Washington for 6 years, and he was on the council 4 years prior to that. That's when I was in college or leaving high school, starting college, and then obviously as a young adult. This is actually my 35th year working on the Hill.
Congratulations.
Well, I don't know what that means yet, but I'm still healthy and I still like it, so I'm still going to do it. I was with the Association of Washington Cities 25 years. And I started employment with the state for a couple of years and then moved over to AWC. At that time, I didn't know if I wanted to do state government work, if I wanted to do local government work. I was kind of leaning local government, given what my father had introduced me to in terms of city work, and I found that exciting. So I kind of got the best of both worlds at AWC, or maybe three worlds. Association of Washington Cities, obviously representing cities, working with cities. We were a nonprofit. Private organization, but also shortly after I started there, I started lobbying there. When I left AWC, I was their assistant director for legislative services, so essentially ran the legislative program for the city association. And then I went to work for Governor Gregoire. And I was her lobbyist, legislative director for the last 2.5 years of her second term. Loved that. Loved working for her. Frankly, the only disappointment is I wish I could have done it longer and put in at least a full term or maybe even both terms that she served. I truly appreciated that work. And she left office, obviously. And I decided I'd give a start at my own consulting business, contract lobbying business. I have a host of clients. I spend a lot of time in the education space. I represent College Success Foundation. I also represent Treehouse. And I represent a number in the tech sector, some healthcare, and some other education, including the University of Washington. So I started young. I had an interest when I was real young of service associated with public service. I only actually spent 4 years, 4.5 in true public service, 2.5 with Governor Gregoire and 2 with the state before I went to work for AWC. But I've been involved in the policy game from the get-go, and I've been more than pleased with that career choice. I've worn a couple of different hats, but I've loved every single one of them.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, people don't usually associate nonprofits with lobbying. Can you talk a little bit about that and what would a nonprofit need to get a lobbyist and for what purpose?
Yeah, it's unique now because of the virtual nature of the legislative session. Frankly, it's easier for folks to participate in the process from their dining room or their kitchen or their office at home, et cetera. Obviously, they're working hard to try and get back to an in-person legislative process. It is really hard to follow when they're working in Olympia. It's really hard to follow from your residence. The value of having somebody up there every day. And there are organizations, University of Washington is one of them, who has people designated as state government relations directors, and they still hire me. They still hire a lobbyist. It's me right now. My job is to be on the ground in Olympia, in front of the legislature, frankly, 24/7. If they're working Friday night at midnight, I'm working Friday night at midnight. And there's advantages to having somebody who's around Olympia regularly because you know the game, you know the process, you know the players, you have relationships with those legislators. You also have other clients, which allow you to establish relationships with legislators who may not follow what you want to do, James and Mentor Wah. Right. But we need that vote, or we need that contact, or he or she serves on a budget committee, and I can help bring you and that legislator together, your members in that legislator together to advance our budget ask and our other request. So having somebody who knows the game, who knows how it's played, and I say game, it's real stuff, it's real life, but it is kind of a game. And how you get a bill introduced and passed out of one chamber and heard in the second and passed out of the second and signed by the governor, the strategy, the tricks of the trade, so to speak, it's helpful to have somebody who knows those.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. What should we be paying attention to in this current session? And maybe in just generally, any committee specifically in Ways and Means or K-12 education, what should we be paying attention to?
Well, let me back up a little bit. I think the role for all of you, a big part of that role is you're on the ground, you're doing the work, you're doing the real stuff, and your ability to communicate what you need and how you work and what's going on with your members, with your local legislators, primarily during the interim, so that period between legislative sessions, is stuff that they will remember. I can kind of strategize and put issues in play and do that. You're the passion about why they're going to prime sponsor that bill or make that budget request or push with their leaders and their budget writers about why they have to do this.
Right.
There is no doubt that a priority of the two Democratic caucuses who are in charge right now is to help those most disadvantaged, and particularly youth.
That's
and
great.
The efforts that they're embarking upon, not only in the K-12 space, but the higher ed space and early learning, is really designed to help those that are disadvantaged, that face the largest barriers, help to get over those barriers. And you've got an interesting mix now, because you've got a business community, major business players in the state, who are all about workforce. They need an educated, trained workforce. And it's not just 4-year computer science degrees from UW. Even the Washington Roundtable, their objective is that by 2030, 70% of all 26-year-olds have a certificate, an associate's degree, a 4-year degree, some kind of credential that allows for them to compete in today's workforce.
Right.
And they're not, the Roundtable, they're not going to get that by bumping up Mercer Island High School's graduation rate from 92% to 96%, right?
Right, right.
They know that all youth have to have a path to obtain that credential.
Right.
And so you've got a mix of not only the Roundtable, but major business organizations that are pushing legislators for investments in K-12, in early learning, in higher ed. Now, they're not always in agreement. You know, there's some battles about what do students need coming out of high school.
Right.
You know, the objective is not to get them graduated from high school. The objective is to get them graduated and on a path for some further education that allows them to effectively compete in the work market. So
yeah,
it's a priority for legislators. So you're going to want to spend time looking at what's going on in the education committees, look what's going on in the budget committees. The state's biggest budget, or their biggest policy document, is their budget. Where they're spending the money is clearly where their priorities are. And if there are pieces that we see popping in a K-12 committee or the higher ed committees that we think would be helpful for us, we need to jump on those.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the same date, you know, because I read something about Boeing. 60% of their workforce will be retiring by 2030. And that includes, you know, both the engineers all the way down to the truck drivers and the custodial staff. So they'll need a reinsertion of employment. So I'm gonna turn it over to the audience online, see if you have any questions for Jim while he's here. We don't want to keep you too long, but this is really great stuff.
The one thing before somebody asks me a question, I really appreciate you doing this, James, because it's harder, obviously, I think, to have good relationships or build good relationships when it's, you know, virtual.
Right.
But it's important that we all work, given what the environment is. We have to do that now. But I think down the road, and again, during the interim, where you can get a legislator on your site to show her or him what you're doing and how you're helping, et cetera. Young adults and kids move legislators more than anything.
Right. Invite them to events, invite them to classes,
correct.
Invite them to workshops, performances, all of that.
And they come.
Yeah.
James and I had Representative Berg back in December. James, where was
she went up to Snohomish County to Hope for Homies farm.
Yeah.
You know, to help with kids that are, you know, in and out of the juvenile justice system. And you know, Nieners and his crew are teaching them how to ride horses. So, and she was really, really invested in that.
And Nieners did a great job of starting to build that relationship on a key legislator who's involved heavily in the K-12 committee, and
Exactly.
that and to do that in the interim when she has time between legislative sessions. So,
Any questions from the House? Go ahead, Robin.
So I personally know Tara Simmons and Emily Randall. How can I have an impact since I can have their ear personally? I mean, how any
well, Robin, the immediate piece that we can do, and I know James can share this, is we've got a $200,000 budget ask in play. And we've got a fact sheet associated with that. And for James to distribute that to all of you, and for you, Robin, to email that to those two members and say, hey, I am vested in this. This is important to us. And it's not that we're not talking 2 million, right?
Right.
It's a very modest investment. But for you to ask with the relationship that you have with those two members, that will move them more than James and I knocking on their door, right?
Definitely. Thank you. Anyone other questions from the audience? Go ahead, Bridget.
Hi, Jim. I'm Bridget Galati. I'm the director of Compass to Campus at Western Washington University. New to role, new to this world, but a program that I'm particularly interested in is college and the high school. And I've heard that there's a growing understanding of the importance of these dual credit programs, and that there's talk of expanding funding for college and the high school at the state level, because we know that continues to be a major obstacle to having more students participate in that program. Do you have any updates or advice to share with those of us who are excited to see that expand?
You know, I don't remember the bill number off the top of my head, but there's bills in both the Senate and the House dealing with dual credit. Representative Paul is the prime of the bill in the House. I think it's got a hearing next week. You can go on to the ledge.wa.gov website. You can search bills by prime sponsors, and you can look at what the K-12 committee has scheduled for next week to get the details on that. I mean, that's one right now where some of the higher ed institutions are a little nervous because there's a cap on what they can charge for dual credits. At the same time, those higher ed institutions are incredibly supportive of what the legislature intends to do. More use of dual credits, broader, better, bigger. One of my other clients is the Washington Roundtable. I do education work for them. They're fully supportive of that. You know, these are means by which students can get excited about stuff, issues, potential careers. They can earn some credits that they could apply to a degree, and they can do it at relatively little expense compared to, you know, how much it costs to go to college. So this is the kind of stuff that the legislature generally is looking at, because fiscal is always a barrier to most folks, or a lot of folks at least, to enter college in ways that we can help educate them without incurring debt, and potential loans, and how that stacks up is something the legislature is looking at. So there are a couple of bills in play. I'm sorry, I don't remember the bill numbers, but.
Oh, thank you.
Tom just put the website into the chat, for the legislative website.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Well, Jim, we know your time is short, so I appreciate you joining us. You know, I think what would you say to everyone here? We are the voice for mentoring in the state. So, of course, if any of us on the call have issues or concerns or questions, please direct them to myself, to Tom. We can then strategize with Jim about making some movement. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think lastly, I think legislators are going to focus on obviously an election next fall. Obviously, everybody in the House and half the Senate's going to be up. That doesn't mean they focus solely on that. They're still doing work during the interim, legislative work. And I'd be glad, James, for you and I to sit down, you and I and Tom, and sit down with this group as we get into the spring and talk about, hey, who should we go see this? You know, who in our group can we say, hey, why don't you go see Senator X or Representative Y, and he's on a budget committee and she's on a policy committee, or vice versa, and just start to build those relationships. So when we have a legislative ask or an agenda, we've got a starting place.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jim. And one last question before you jet. I know Beverly is calling in from Ponderay, which is on the other side of the state. Is there something different she or other Eastern Washingtonians should be thinking of in terms of, because they don't have that same access to Olympia that we on the I-5 corridor may have?
The advantage part, one of the advantages, if I don't say it as an advantage, but one of the results of COVID is it is easier for folks in Eastern Washington to participate in a public hearing because they're all virtual. They've been all virtual the last 2 years. You don't have to drive to Olympia to spend 2 minutes in front of a legislative committee and give testimony. You can do it from at home. So I think that component of the legislative process is not going to change. I think in the future, they will always have some virtual presence at public hearings, just to allow folks from different corners of the state to participate without travel challenges.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much, Jim. Really appreciate this. As always, you're the best.
Thanks, James. Thanks for your time, and good luck to everyone. Have a good day. I hope to connect again in the spring.
Definitely. Take care.
Right. Bye-bye, all.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for participating, and I saw people taking notes, and that was lovely. Tom, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Sure. James, I just want to thank you for bringing Jim in and stuff like that. Just to share with folks, it's not rocket science. I mean, we vote the legislators in, and so they're always wanting to hear from their constituents. Some have more experience than others at doing it, but it's not rocket science. So I'm glad that folks that attended today, and then though I know you're recording it, folks that are watching this, let's work together, because the last thing that doesn't work is that we all hit up those legislators independently and they don't know what to do. It's like, so if we can work together with some common threads and stuff like that, advancing, whether it's mentoring, youth development, kid stuff here, and just populations of youth and stuff like that. We know that every kid that wants a mentor should be able to get access to a mentor, but we also know that there are certain kids in certain populations, unbeknownst to themselves, foster, adjudicated youth, substance abuse prevention, homelessness, dropout, that need a little more attention. So that's the working out together, being more integrated, and how do we make that ask and stuff like that. So what I want to talk about today is Capitol Hill Day. And this is something that is connected with the National Mentoring Summit. Every year during that time prior to the summit kickoff, is that they do back when we could back in the day, they would meet with congressional folks back in Washington, D.C. This is by Zoom this year, and that will happen next Thursday. And so I want to share with you kind of what's going to go on, who we're going to meet with, what is the ask that we're going to do that, and what are some tips. There is a training that we'll put out to an email that is on Monday. We'll go over this as well, but I just want to give folks a chance to meet and greet. There's 14 other folks that are part of this that aren't on this today, for various reasons. So it's a group thing. We have asked 9 congressional folks visits, and we have 5 confirmed back. Some of the visits are with the congressional folks themselves, and a few of them are with their aides, which is just as important, stuff like that. The aides are the ones that take the liaisons that take it back to them. And so we'll be sending out times of those. We usually get 30 minutes, and it pops off as that, we'll make an introduction. This is mentoring. This is what Mentor Washington is right here. If we have time, depending on the size, because we'll be matching folks up with their congressional district. And then the other one is when you have a senator like Senator Murray and Cantwell, those are statewide. They serve statewide, so everyone will be involved with that. But the ones with your congressional folks, for example, Adam Smith and stuff, those will be small. And so we'll have times for introductions, that we can go around the table. The other ones, if there's a big group, we got 15 folks in a room, you only got 30 minutes. And so we'll put stuff like in the chat where you're from, and then we'll pick, some type of order to go and stuff. And Mentor Washington will start them off. Me or James will kick it off, talk about what is mentoring in our state, and then from there, there's an ask from Mentor, and it's usually around big ticket items, foster care mentoring, workforce mentoring at the big level. And we'll sit there and try to get the congressional folks involved with that. And then we say the majority of time is for you guys to talk. Again, we'll come up with a cadence who talks, because at the end of the day, they really want to hear what's happening back home. And you guys know that better than anyone else. And so that will be the last part of that day. That's just how we stage that. And then I do want to share with you that every one of those offices back east, for those that don't know, and some might do this, that they have offices here. Like Cantwell has like 3 offices here. Murray has 3 offices here. And I would encourage us afterwards to follow up with those offices. Mentor Washington can help with that. If you don't know that, if you already know that, that's fantastic. But we can help identify those offices and make an ask there. And that's where, you invite the legislators or the congressional folks out to your program when they're back on recess. And they're back quite a bit. So, hey, let's come check out the program. They love that stuff. And so then you get to build your own relationship with that congressional person and stuff. And it's the same thing what we do with the state legislators. We're just what you call it, amplifying it to Congress and stuff. Now, some of the folks have started doing earmarks. And for those folks that don't know what an earmark is, I might be aging myself, it's where you can go make a request to Congress and they can put money lined items to your program, to your district for certain things. Some of them are starting. That's Congressman Strickland in Tacoma has that out there. So that's starting to go through as well as there. So we'll keep you more apprised of that. I think, again, instead of doing one-offs, unless you've got a big dollar amount, if we go in with a group for an area, we'll get more money. We'll be more successful that way. So I'm not saying that you can't go ahead and go off and do that right here, but you have more chance getting more if we do that together and stuff like that in your area, in that geographic area and stuff like that. And then what is the cause and stuff. We have been able to do things like attendance. Chronic absenteeism is a big thing in our state. 5 years ago, we were like the #1, and not in a good way. We had the highest chronic absenteeism rates in the nation. It's just the way that we were tracking. And so we made a pitch to Congressman Herrera Butler, and she signed on some village and signed some stuff right here and really got involved with that. So, there's foster care, there's adjudicated youth, there's the workforce stuff is big out here. There's a number of things that, that our legislators back east and stuff like that are involved with and want to hear and stuff. So, James, do you have there was a couple sheets I sent you yesterday, James. Is there any way we could bring those up?
Yeah, no problem.
I'm talking about, there's 2 tip sheets or yeah, right here it is right here. So here's some stuff right here that James is sharing.
Also, put it in the chat, and then here's the screen.
So I'll talk about this as we go. So again, all of it is on Zoom. And so again, it's just like any Zoom meeting, but it's a Zoom meeting that you're with your congressional person. So regardless of the party affiliation, we try to keep the politics out of it. So many times we could be meeting with a Republican. We don't want to hear how all Republicans are bad. And if you're a Democrat, we don't have to have, and vice versa. Keep, any, campaign slogans, something stinks or whatever. Not wearing a T-shirt that says that, that it's that.
Let's go, Brandon.
It really is. It really is. We're trying to be what you call it. And again, we've had, scenarios, not in our state, where someone would come in and, we used to go back there. And again, this is just an example, wasn't my example, that you'll have like Fox News on. And one of the people got in, well, geez, why are they watching that and all that? Well, that's what they listen to and stuff like that. But they were making that loud and known what they hated about Fox News and all that stuff. Well, that may or may not go well with that Congress person you're going to go at. So we got to be really, you got to be playing, they're really playing on that stuff like that. So that's one of the stuff. And this is what it says, no signs, pictures, logos, and things like that. Okay, and the tips are just to be authentic, is to really write out ahead of time, what is your story? If you did a 2-3 minute elevator speech, we're going to have a bunch of us in the room, we have 30 minutes. What to be the story? How can you tell the need and what do you do and to make an impact? and tell that elevator speech. They say 15 to 20 minutes here, and that's even less time. So what can you really get your point across, including inviting them to come to your program in the summertime? Now, if you do have leave behinds or one pagers that if you want to send those to me and James ahead of time, that would be fantastic. We will share that in a packet with the congressional folks. And if you don't have that ready in time and stuff like that, we can still send that to us. We will send that in the thank you, because we're going to thank them for their time. We will include that in their packet, and then you guys can make arrangements to come see them. And again, come prepared to tell your story. I can't tell you that we all tell a story, but putting it on paper and getting it down to 2 minutes is hard. So getting in there and not talking and on and on and on, and giving your fellow your organization a chance to talk. So really, do that ahead of time. That will make it a lot easier, because again, I could go on and stuff. I'm one of those type of people right there. And what do you want to include, Laura? You want to include who's your program, who are the population of youth you're serving. Give some good stuff, not only bad stuff. Talk about the need, and then talk about what's happening there. What's the good stuff right here? And then talk about if there's any gaps. If we had this, we could do more of this. And it's not always money, but if we had this coordination and all that, a lot of times it is money. But really tell that out. Again, it's just telling a story. You're opening it, you're describing something, you're giving a narrative. And then what is your ask at the end? What are you closing it with? And then I would suggest you want to close it. You want to invite them to your program during the recess and stuff.
Hey, Tom, when should they send that to us? By when?
Well,
before next Tuesday?
Next Thursday. If you can do it Tuesday, they close the business Tuesday, that would be very helpful. Yeah. We will guarantee that's in the packet. If it's after that, we'll give you another week, and then we'll put it in the thank yous that go out. But it would be nice to have those, and it doesn't have to be anything, just what do you guys do? I mean, what does the program do and stuff like that? What was the objectives? And we will make sure that's in the packet.
Yeah. And Capitol Hill Day is next Wednesday, right?
Next Wednesday. Yeah, next Wednesday, not Thursday, Wednesday. So we'd like that. Yeah. Close the business Tuesday, and we still can wrap that up and get that to them.
Perfect.
And so I want to stop here before we go on to the next slide right here. Is there any questions? Does anybody have any questions?
You want that regardless of whether we're going to attend or not?
I would like to, because yes, because regardless if you're going to attend or not, because we will put that in a packet. We will match that up with that congressional person in that district and make sure they know the programs in their area.
Sorry, and I know you said by when we needed to send it, if we wanted it to be in the packet ahead of time. What was that date again?
If you can get it by that Wednesday, by Tuesday evening, close of business, we start the meetings on Wednesday, and I can ensure that it gets into the packets that go to the congressional office or to the liaison who are working with.
Tuesday the 25th, next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you have a general idea, I want to participate, if you can let us know that too. And if you can do that earlier than Tuesday, you could do that like by Monday. With all the security and stuff, they're really careful on who's on these Zoom calls. I don't know if they do background checks and all that now. I'm not going that far, but they want names ahead of time, who's in the room and all that other stuff right here. So that will be helpful for us and stuff like that. Because me and James are opening this up beyond Mentor. Mentor wanted the names last week. We're going to give them the names, So if we can get those names by Monday, hey, I'm thinking about participating and stuff. I want to participate. We can at least let them know ahead of time that you'll be in the room.
Great. Thanks, Robin. I see you want to participate. We'll make sure Jeanette, who's our new administrative assistant.
Bridget's already getting emails. So yes, Bridget, you're already on the list. You're already there. Yep. Yes, and you're getting emails from me. So you're already a participant. And then James, we had the other one. We had one other page here.
Yeah. The talking points.
Yeah. So you asked, what I tell the story. Here's what we're going to do. Some of the talking points that we're going to use. We're going to talk about the mentoring gap very quickly. Why does mentoring matter? We don't know if this congressional person knows what mentoring is or not, or at how depth. So we'll go over some of these. Talk about some of the stats. What's it look like? And then again, you could follow the same thing. We're going to do it from a high level, and then it's for you guys to really take it from there and talk about what's happening in your districts.
Bridget asked a great question, including a student mentor, a college student mentor next week.
Yes, that would be awesome. That
That'd be
would
great.
be awesome. You heard Jim. It's really, at the end of the day, it's about constituents and youth. And there's nothing more powerful than a youth talking about what they're getting or not getting out of it, or missing, you know, by not having a mentor or having this mentor and they were able to do that. Yeah, that would probably be top on my list. You know, we can talk all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, it's really about that young person talking.
Thank you. And remind me, I know I have this in my calendar, but the time for this, if I'm reaching out to see if we have a mentor who would be available.
So I'm going to be sending out, I just got my final list in today, just about 30 minutes ago. So we have 5 meetings set up so far. I will be sending that list out. To be sure to do the time thing. They're giving me Eastern Standard Times. So we want to go 3 hours back, and we'll make the adjustment. I'll put something on there. But the first meeting is going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so we'll make sure we put PST on there, but that's when they are. And we've got 5 of them already set. So by the end of the day, you'll know what those 5 are. Well, I'm going to give it one more day. By the end of tomorrow, or midday tomorrow, you'll know those 5 are, because I want to see if they come up with any other ones. And then as they come up with other ones, I'll let you know as I get those and stuff. So I can tell you what times we have so far set up. We have 9:30, 11, 11:45, 1:30, and another 12:30. So we have a couple that overlap, and the ones that overlap, me and James are going to split up. And again, what that means for you is just depending on where your district is and stuff. Unless you run a statewide program, you know, you can say I run a statewide program, we can kind of split it up where they go there. And the other ones will be when we meet with the senators, which are statewide. Everybody on this group will be, that wants to participate, will be in those ones. Also, if you are signed up for the summit, and if you signed up for Hill Day, you will have this app that tells you everything that I'm talking about, and then we'll give you a brief bio of the legislator as well. Okay.
And Tom, those are EST times or
EST times, but I'm gonna translate them to Pacific Standard Times and stuff. So there's perfect. So we don't miss any of them. Now, someone just put something in here, James. This one thing I think would be incredibly helpful is having statistics on benefits for mentors. This demonstrates the double impact because mutual benefits. I definitely agree on that. So is that something that you want or something that you have? Or you want us to?
Something that I want. It's actually something I can't seem to find, even as I'm writing a lot for to recruit mentors this month and writing articles for the paper and just getting the word out about mentoring. And I want to be able to express both sides.
We can help you out with that. We can help you out with that there. And if you, I've been following our state legislature, and there is a lot of bills around mental health. In fact, most of the bills, you know, because I work for DCYF, most of the bills are around mental health. So that we definitely can help you with some of that stuff and that. Yeah.
And Delphina, I just added our annual report to the chat. On page 3, I think there's a bunch of stats with links about the benefits of mentoring.
Yeah. And then Delphina, we had this about 7-8 years ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, we did a GATE study. It was a $5 million GATE study. And the top thing that was out of that is that mentoring helps with kids with depression and with mental health issues and stuff. And we can share that with you. It's called The Role of Risk. And we'll send that your way. We'll send you both the long version, plus we have executive summary and save you some time reading it. But we have some stats on that in that study.
Yeah.
And also, we also shifting gears, we also had a webinar that we kind of partnered with OSPI, and then we're going to have this person come to our thing, Dr. Jean Rhodes. And so what Dr. Jean Rhodes said is that, you know, we have to really, the kids that are coming across the door of these mentoring programs, our kids just there for relationships. I mean, they got some things they need to work on. Not necessarily case management, but they got a lot more, you know, social emotional stuff. So we have to make sure that we're training our mentors, because these aren't kids just coming in just to hang out and stuff like that. And so she showed the stats of programs in our state that had low impact, which was very surprising, some of them, and then she showed the stats with the high impact ones. And I will let the video speak for itself. It showed but some of the high impact, which was some of the boutique programs that we have. It was some of the smaller ones that were really intentional about working with their youth and really did the training with the social emotional and in what you call it, or, you know, if you had a foster youth, what did it take to this? This isn't just getting them together and you're being a friend. You were working around the activity. You're working on something together. And so Jean Rhodes has, you know, she has this thing called youth initiated mentoring that they're studying as well. And so we will send that out, or that's on our website, James, the thing, but really take a look at that, because that was quite interesting. It's not a knock against the big programs in our state. They do a wonderful job, but it really is, it was a win for the smaller boutique programs. When I say boutique, the smaller ones that really get into it with those one-on-one, the needs of that child and all that stuff. And they can do that because they're smaller and stuff. So I think that's a direction that we want to make sure that bucket's filled as well. So when you talk about mental health, it's not that you just come through the door as a big box mentoring program. You may or may not get what you need out of that. You might have to go to a smaller one, or if you're a smaller program, integrate that training component in is really important. And the research is showing that.
Yeah. And meanwhile, in the chat room, there was, I mean, that was good info, Tom, thank you. The surveys that we administer are right now just for youth, but if there was a uniform survey for the mentors that we could administer, I'd be happy to do that. Because right now we just have one that is not necessarily evidence-based or uniform, but could provide counter stats.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll ask our researcher too, Susanna, because that's a good like parity, benefits for the mentee and the mentor.
Absolutely. So that's what I have on Capitol
Yes.
Hill Day. It's exciting. You know, thank you guys for all the work that you do. And if you have any questions beyond this, you know, you got something to ask me, I should have asked that. Reach out to me or James, but we'll do that. And again, if you'll get more of this for the ones that signed up in the training next Monday through Mentor, similar thing that we're talking about here. For folks that have not signed up for it, don't worry about it. We will get you that stuff as well. We'll send that to you. You know, if you want to participate, you're putting on this chat. I want to participate. We'll make sure the materials go to you, and then we'll see you next Wednesday. But you will be getting some stuff by midday tomorrow on the times. So what we have set up so far.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. This was really great, really informative. As Tom said, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always here, always in here. Robin will add you to the email list. So Jeanette's doing that right now. And Delphina, you as well. Thank you. Perfect.
I'm so sorry. I mean, I saved my question for the end because nobody has to listen to it because I was getting reports of positive COVID cases, so I got distracted at a certain point in the thing. So I can't attend the legislative session, but I do want to send anything that I can to support Mentor Washington as a representative of us. So what format and what information could we give you guys? And you guys can ignore my question if you this answer.
No, absolutely. So so if you could send us a one-pager, or if you have something you want us to share with your congressional district office, we will do that. We will make sure it has your name and number and contact stuff, and we will encourage them to reach out to you or let them know that you might be reaching out to them to set something up with a visit. So
Okay.
if that's what you want, we can do that.
I mean, I want them to give $1 million to Mentor
Well, yeah.
Washington and then you guys distribute it. I mean, honestly.
We would like that too.
Grady, what's happening, Grady? What do you think?
First of all, I joined into a meeting. I think it's totally phenomenal. Tom knows a lot about me. This came through my email and I seen it, and I'll be honest, I saw Men in Washington first and I seen Tom's name. I said, okay, I'm going. You know, so I signed it. I just knew, I think it's really good. I was listening to participate, and I'll be honest, I think if I could have about 2-3 minutes, Tom kind of knows, I always like to just say, I like to offer my apologies for the offense I committed on society and the communities. I had absolutely no right. I was at the age of 24 when I did that, and I'm now 62 years of age. I have 37 years lived experience in incarceration, and I was granted clemency January 28th. I'm coming up on 1 year in 2021.
That's
So
awesome.
I
Congrats.
definitely like to always start off my meetings with that apology. I'm humbled. I'm truly humbled by being here today. I've been looking for some direction. Tom has inspired me so much in meetings with other things. Just getting inspiration. He even got me back into the gym. You know, I just want to let him know that he sent me some pictures of. I said, I got to get back into the gym. So it's really great. I'm currently mentoring 2 18-year-olds, a brother and a sister. And I'm listening to some of the traumas. I'm also, well, I should say I'm a corrections and reentry program director for Roots to Success. I'm also a trauma-informed facilitator, and I'm a sole proprietor of my own consulting business. None of that means nothing to me. Really, they're just titles. What means most to me is the successes that come from highlighting greatness in other people. I think the next thing that would be, you know, Sir Edmund Burke, you know, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And so that's why I continue to do. That's why I popped up today. Tom had no clue I'd be here. You know, so yeah, and I think the work in this space that you folks are doing is absolutely great. The 2 that I'm doing now have been abused emotionally, physically, and sexually since they were 12, and they were homeless. And when I was made aware of them, they were working and going to high school. And I would say that's enough dedication for me right there. You know, to know that they're homeless, working and going to high school. So I mean, we put out all stops. They have their own brand new apartment now. Each of them put out a call. We furnished it for them. And now I'm starting to get that input and feedback from them about many of the other challenges that a lot of the youth are facing. So when I heard this and I was listening, excuse me, to Mr. Justin, I was like, man, it's a lot of opportunities available there, and I just needed to know how to do that. So I just thank you for letting me sit here, and I know I can go on, but for being a part of this space with you and knowing that, man, Men of Washington is doing some great things, and probably be hearing from me again, James.